So in today's video we are going to look at alcohol markers. So I am going to try using alcohol markers again, and I was sent by the lovely Tor a lot of alcohol friendly papers. Some of them were better than others, just for me to try out to see if I would actually like alcohol markers again. We are going to talk about each of these papers and my thoughts and final opinions about alcohol markers as a watercolour artist or digital artist, and what I think of them. Okay, so a couple of disclaimers before I start talking about these different papers and the alcohol markers themselves at the end and my actual final thoughts. I just want to say that I did use all of these from different artists, but I had to trace them onto the paper because most of the papers didn't fit through my printer, and I wanted to test ink smudging on them. So there are better quality line arts by the actual artists than me because it's really hard to trace other people's artwork. The line quality is shaky and it's different and it's hard, but it took me days to do this, and I let the ink cure for like a week before I started doing these, which I usually don't do. I usually just go straight in with paint or whatever I am doing, but I usually don't use ink either. So yeah, I used the Unipin fine liners because those are the ones that are my favourites. I do have microns and Staedtlers and all that, but I really do prefer the Staedtler, no, not the Staedtler, the Unipin fine liners for watercolour, so I just use those. Ink and markers, however, is a different story. I have no idea what's going on there. Anyway, let's go through a thing with this, thinking about something else, distracting myself. But anyway, this one is by Drawing with Waffles, and I will link everything in the description below if I can. Tor and Katie don't give away theirs for free, so I can't do that. I did have one from Myra as well, but it was on Letraset paper and I didn't really want to use that. So anyway, I have a couple of things that I wanted to test while I was doing these. So I have texture, laydown, absorbency, vibrancy, blending, ink smudging, feathering, and then my overall feel of how I felt when I was actually doing the artwork. So texture for this one, there is texture. It's mixed media paper. Sorry, I should tell you what it is. It's Daler Rooney 250 grams per metre squared, 196 pounds, acid-free mixed media paper. And I have this paper as well, I think. Or I did have it, but I used it all up. Anyway, so there is texture on it, but the laydown is pretty smooth. The absorbency is kind of high. It does soak up more ink than normal marker paper because it does soak into the paper really quick, but given that it still is easy to blend, or the blending is at least good, I liked it. The vibrancy of the colours are great, and the ink smudging doesn't happen, which is great. There is no feathering either, and overall I felt really good doing this one. I really enjoyed it. I wish that I actually put more effort into shading and stuff. I did put coloured pencil over the top after I recorded, and I will show you all of them at the end. They're all at different stages of completion because I did too many in 2 days. I should have spread it out a little bit more, but I was rushing, so I wish I didn't rush. So my opinions may be a little bit skewed based on the fact that I was doing a lot at once and I was getting really bored. But overall, I think this is a good paper to use if you don't mind your ink soaking up really quick, and it's good for if you want to put coloured pencil on top to give a little bit more texture and depth. I really enjoyed this paper, and I do recommend it again if you don't mind your ink running out faster. The next one is Hobbycraft paper. It's A4 and it's 160 GSM. Thank you, Tor, for putting all of the information on the actual papers. So the line art is by Katie on this one, and I really wish that I put my favourite line arts on the better papers because I didn't have fun when it was on a rubbish paper, but I didn't know what paper I was going to like. And I love all of the line art anyway, but I did have fun more with others. But let's just talk about this one. So the texture, there was a little bit texture, and the laydown is pretty patchy. It soaks up the ink a little bit, but not too much. The blending is okay, it's vibrant colours. It does smudge the ink, however, and it feathers slightly. So this paper is probably in my least two. The ink smudged more on the little dots that had happened, and Katie's little Charlie mouse, by the way, if you want to go and check out Katie, you can. The link will be in the description below. You should check out all of these people. They are all YouTubers, and I will leave their links in the description below. By the way, Katie, sorry, I didn't film all of this, so I didn't really film me doing Charlie's skin, and I'm not sure if I used the right colours, but whatever. I was in a rush. I really want to do a little drawing of Charlie in my own style, or colour Charlie again though, because he was really fun and I like him. But yeah, I only went over one pass with these markers because I just wasn't enjoying it. I did blend a little bit on the small dinosaur and the egg and the pterodactyl, I think it is, on the top left hand corner, the yellow one. So the blending is good and the colours are vibrant. It's just a little bit patchy, but if you go over it again, it won't be patchy, but I don't want to go over something that I've already done. The biggest problem with me is that I didn't have enough patience to wait and finish the drawing because I just kept on having to go over areas, and areas took a long time to fill up. People say that you need patience for watercolour, but I think that watercolour is quicker than markers. Anyway, let's move on to the next one because we've got a lot to talk about. The next one I actually did last because I was saving the best for last. Tor even put little love hearts and love in brackets on this paper, so I expected it to be good, and I think that's why I didn't like it as much as I thought I was going to like it. I still think it's one of the best papers, probably the best, but I have a little bit to say about it. This is the Express It blending card. The line art is by Drawing with Waffles, and you can get all of her line art that I used for free, but you have to go to our YouTube channel to get the link first because I'm mean like that. But anyway, there was no texture, not that I didn't like anyway, none. It's smooth. The laydown smooth, patchy with some brands and some colours though. For instance, the Copic marker laid on pretty okay and I really liked using those with it, but the Spectrum Noir markers, especially the skin tone which I used TN2 for, was really patchy and I didn't like it. But I think that you have to go over it and build up the layers with this paper because I used the reds on the t-shirt. Well, first of all, I put a peach down from the Winsor Newton brand, but I then went over it with Spectrum Noir and it worked really well, and I like the results of that t-shirt. So I think that with Copic markers, it's a learning curve, and with using all these different papers, it's kind of hard to know how to do it, how it reacts. So in that sense, I think that it was a little bit unfair, I guess. The absorbency, it was slightly absorbent, but not too much. Like, it was perfect pretty much. The vibrant colours, definitely. The blending was great. The ink smudging was noticeable on thick lines but not anywhere else. Like on the thin lines, if you went over those it wouldn't smudge, but if you went over the thick lines it would. The feathering, no, it didn't feather at all. I loved working with this and probably would like it more if I had more colour options for Copic markers, because the Copic markers didn't really blend. Like, that's the problem that I had. I didn't use or try or know what colours to use and what colours looked good, because I didn't do any swatching beforehand and the caps are off, and it was a nightmare basically. I probably should have did a little bit more research for this. This video is going to go over well over 10 minutes, so sorry about that, but I really want to make this video very helpful for other people that are trying Copic markers or any other alcohol markers for the first time. So let's go on to the next one. This one was one of my favourite ones to work on and to do. I like the line art. I love the way that the paper acted, but we'll get into the points in a second. I just want to mention that this is from Tor, and she's actually did a video on her channel about this. There's a story time and a drawing, and I loved that video, and I think you should go and check it out to listen to the story of why there is an elf standing on the middle of the road. I think it was supposed to be a road, but I coloured it desert, I don't know. On the phone with her car busted. And I love the fact that she put Tor Elf as the registration plate. That tickled me. It was so funny. But anyway, enough about the line art and who did it. Let's talk about the actual paper and experience itself. This is the Simply the Best Silky Smooth Ultra White 250 GSM LimeTreeCraft.com paper. And I think it's less expensive, I'm not sure. But this is slightly textured, but it was pleasant to work on. There was no like weird white speckling or anything like that. The laydown was smooth. Absorbent was quite medium, like it was easy to blend. It was easy to have it dry nicely. Vibrant colours, easy to blend like I said. No smudging on the ink, no feathering, and I enjoyed this. It was really fun to work on and I loved the results of it. And I think the reason for that is more to do with the fact that I put a bit more effort into this. Like I did a lot of blending on the car. I did some blending on her little dress there. I'm not used to tight spaces, so it was kind of hard. I even put little pink bits in the cheeks and the knees and the elbows and on the ear, so that was fun. I didn't really put too much effort into the background. In fact, I left the top of it white, which is weird, but whatever. But I really enjoyed this paper. It's not the best paper, and it's probably gonna be for people that use Copic markers a lot or alcohol-based markers a lot. They probably would prefer something else like the Express It Blend It card, but whatever. So the next one is this one that I cannot pronounce. I'll put it on the screen, but it is the Colotech Plus paper, and there's a word that I can't pronounce at the start. I hate it when words start with an X because I don't know how to do it. Xerox would be my guess, but I'm not sure. It's 160 GSM, and even though there was issues with this paper, I actually loved working on this. And the line art is by Drawing with Waffles again. Like I said, I used a lot of Drawing with Waffles. I have one from Myra as well, but I didn't put it in this video because it was on the same paper that I had. I didn't need, I think, anyway. I've got it here. Although this paper looks less cream than my other paper, I'm not sure. Anyway, so this had slight but pleasant texture. The laydown was smooth. The absorbency slight again. Vibrancy, yes. Blending very easy. Ink smudging, no, only on thick areas again. Feathering, no, and I loved working on this. The favourite parts of this illustration that I coloured are the jeans and the pillows, the yellow ones. I think that they came out really cool. I put a lot of effort into doing those. There is a slight speckly texture that you can see, but I actually like that in this paper. But further on, as in I'm going to talk about it right now while this is still going on, other papers I didn't like the speckling too much. So the next line art, which I'm not actually going to show you the colouring of because I knew that this video was going to go on far too long if I did keep it in. I've got two more that I didn't actually put in. The first one was a paper that I didn't actually get from Tor. I had it in my stash, and it was the paper that I first used alcohol markers on, and I think it's the reason why I decided I was not a marker girl, as everybody calls themselves when they do markers, or marker boy or whatever. Marker person. So this is the Letra Set paper. I don't know the GSM or the weight of it. It's really thin. It is like marker paper. I think it's ink bleed resistant. So there was no smudging on the ink, but other than that, the texture is weird white speckling. So there was, yes, texture. The laydown of the paper was smooth and wet, so it didn't really absorb very well. The vibrancy was quite bright. I only used 2 colours on it, so I'm not sure. Blending, again, I don't know, although I did do a couple of marker pieces on this, and I think the blending is actually okay, but I just don't like the effect anyway, so it kind of counteracts it. Again, ink smudging, no, and feathering, there was a lot of feathering, and I hated that. Like the ink would bleed out over the lines if you were too close, and I don't like that. And I was going out the lines a lot on this paper. The laydown was quite patchy as well in some areas, and I just didn't like it, and for that reason I stopped it. I love the line art. The line art is by Tor. It's a little fairy with a sunflower, and I liked it, but unfortunately the paper was not the best. So the next paper is actually a paper that Tor sent me as well, and it's HP Colour Laser Paper 120 GSM, and the line art is by Drawing with Waffles. And I did do some blending on this one, but I stopped because of the ink smudging, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that this line art in particular is really thick, so I just couldn't get away from it. So there's no texture, it doesn't absorb that much, the colours are vibrant, the blending, I don't know, it needs more work than usual, but it is possible. The ink smudging, yes, terrible. Feathering, not really, but there was some. I don't think I was really paying attention to that because I just wanted this to end. And I didn't enjoy it. I stopped halfway through because it just was rubbish. I hated it. So those are all of the pieces that I worked on, and very quickly before this video gets too long, I just want to make some points about markers themselves. So the pros, there is 2. There's 2 pros for myself as a watercolour artist primarily about these markers. The fact being that there is a nice flat laydown of colour, they're fun to use on the right paper, and that is it. The cons are that they are expensive. Even if you get cheaper brands, you have to replace them. The ink comes out far too fast. You waste a lot of ink. Well, you don't waste a lot of ink, but you use up a lot of ink, and you have to buy them, and some of them don't come in single things. I don't know. You have to buy a lot to get decent blends as well, because if you don't have 3 in close proximity to each other, for example, the Spectrum Noirs, there is a PL 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. If you don't have all of those 3 colours, they kind of don't blend very well if you skip a couple of numbers. So you need to, if you want to get a good blend, I think get a few different colours. However, I do have one set of the Winsor & Newton coloured markers, and even though their nibs are quite hard and they're less juicy, I kind of like them for quick kind of colour put down. So not for full illustrations, but just in my sketchbook playing around. They have a huge learning curve, I think. They are harder to learn than watercolour, even though watercolour is meant to be the hardest. I think that it's just because I've been using watercolour for years now, I'm used to it, but I don't know, I think that I would get frustrated learning markers. And you can't really use sketchbooks unless you have the Crescent Render sketchbook, which I do actually have. I purchased one a while ago, but it's really tiny and I didn't like it at all. But it's cool that you can go on both sides of the paper, and I think the reason I didn't like it is because it's so small. I bought a really pocket-sized version of that sketchbook. You can use them in other sketchbooks, but then it means that you won't be able to use the other side of the page, or, you know, it's just, you need to find the right paper. I don't think they're as fun for me as watercolour is for me, or digital art, or any other medium actually, coloured pencil even. I just think that I did have fun while doing these, and I probably would have more fun if I did it occasionally and just worked on a piece properly and did my own artwork on it instead of colouring other people's artwork. But I just think that I would prefer to have watercolours, and watercolours are less expensive, especially since you just get a small tube and then that lasts you for months because they're re-wettable. It's too time consuming for me. I don't like it. It just takes too much time for me to put down colour, and it's just not for me. Not all markers perform the same as well, even in the same brand. Some of the colours are drier. I don't know whether it's because I have used up some of the colours in my collection, but I just don't feel like there's that much consistency there, and I don't like that at all. And especially if you have markers and you don't have enough money to fill them up or to buy new ones, then you're stuck with markers that are empty for years. Like, I've literally had these since 2015 and haven't used them, and they are drying out, and I only did a few pieces with them. I think I've did 4. Before these, I've did 4 marker drawings, so not good to get 4 marker drawings out of 1 marker. No. And then the last con point that I have is that they dry out really quick, which is the same that I just said. So I used Stylefly, Spectrum Noir, Copics, and Pro markers in this. The Stylefly are juicy and I love the nib. They are awesome, but I don't think that they're a very reputable brand. Nobody knows about them. I got them in a scroller box. I only had a couple of colours, but I liked the way that they worked. The Spectrum Noir are juicy, but act weird on more papers than most of the other brands that I have used. But I do love the Spectrum Noir markers, and I think that they're very good. I actually got sent them for free by a viewer. And then the Copics, I don't really like the nibs. The brush seems to be harder to control for me. When they're juicy, they're great, but they run out far too quick compared to other markers, in my opinion. The Pro markers, I have the limited colour selection. Like I said, I've only got the pastels, but they do have nice colours, and I do like the fact that they're a little bit drier than other markers, because if you want that option, you can. They don't have a brush nib, but they are really good without them. And Spectrum Noir, the ones that I have anyway, don't have the brush nib either, but the bullet tip and the chisel nib are just fine. So after all that being said for 22 minutes, I am really sorry, but I don't think that I will be going back to markers. The problem is I have a pretty substantial set of random markers from different brands, mostly Spectrum Noir, that are half empty, fully full, and I don't know what to do with them. Should I give them away? Should I keep them just in case? I've had them for 5 years, and this is the first time I've used them. Well, 4 years actually. And this is the first time I have used them in a very long time. I gave most of my markers away to Tor because she didn't have certain amounts of Copic markers, and I just gave them away to her because I just wanted to help her. And the only Copic markers that I've got left is the ones that she already has. So yeah, I don't know. I really don't know what to do with them. If you have any suggestions on what to do with them, put it in the comments below, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks for watching.